What happens when a beloved royal sits down for what should be a simple morning chat show, only to face a host who seems determined to tear him down on live television? In just 29 seconds, Lorraine Kelly would go from breakfast TV darling to the most talked about antagonist in British television history. The morning started like any other day at the television studio. Crew members rushed around adjusting lights, checking camera angles, and making final preparations. The audience filed in, excited to see Prince Harry in person. Nobody could have predicted what was about to unfold. Prince Harry walked onto the set of the Lorraine Kelly show expecting a warm welcome. The cameras were rolling, the studio audience applauded politely, and Lorraine sat behind her desk with that signature smile plastered across her face. But there was something different in her eyes that morning. Something sharp. Something hungry. Something that suggested this interview would not go the way anyone expected. "Prince Harry, welcome to the show," Lorraine said, her voice dripping with a sweetness that felt rehearsed, practiced. "Please, have a seat. We're so thrilled to have you here today." Harry settled into the guest chair, adjusting his jacket and smoothing down his tie. "Thank you for having me, Lorraine. It's good to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about some important work." "Oh, I'm sure it is," she replied, leaning back in her chair with an expression that was already shifting from warm to cold, like clouds passing over the sun. "You know, we don't often get royals on this program. Usually, you're all too busy with your palaces and your polo matches and your garden parties to sit down with us common folk. So what brings you slumming it with us today?" The audience went quiet. The energy in the room shifted immediately. Harry's smile faltered just slightly. "Well, I think it's important to connect with people directly, to have conversations about things that matter. That's why I'm here." Lorraine let out a short laugh that sounded more like a bark, glancing at her co-panelists, Ross King and Christine Lampard, who sat off to the side at their own desk. Ross shifted uncomfortably in his seat, already sensing trouble. Christine looked down at her notes, already sensing where this was heading, her fingers drumming nervously on her paper. "Connect with people," Lorraine repeated, her tone mocking, dripping with disdain. That's rich coming from someone who lives in a mansion, multiple mansions actually, while people are struggling to heat their homes. "Tell me, Harry, do you even know how much a loaf of bread costs these days? Or a pint of milk? Have you ever actually bought groceries yourself?" Harry took a breath, visibly collecting himself, keeping his composure. "Actually, Lorraine, that's exactly why I wanted to come on today. To talk about the work we're doing with various charities to help families in need during these difficult times. We're partnering with food banks across the country, and we're also working on programs to help with energy costs." "Oh, please," Lorraine interrupted, waving her hand dismissively as if swatting away a fly. "Spare us the rehearsed charity speech. We've all heard it before 1,000 times. You show up, shake a few hands, take some photos for the press, maybe cut a ribbon, and then disappear back into your privileged life. Rinse and repeat. It's all for show, isn't it? All for the cameras?" Ross King cleared his throat nervously, his discomfort obvious. "Lorraine, maybe we should let him explain the programs he's involved with in more detail. I think our viewers would be genuinely interested to hear the specifics about what these charities are actually doing." Lorraine shot Ross a look that could freeze water, her eyes narrowing dangerously. "I'm conducting this interview, Ross. If you have something to add, you can wait your turn. This is my show, not yours. I'll decide what direction this conversation takes." Ross went silent, his face flushing slightly with embarrassment. He exchanged a worried glance with Christine, who was gripping her note cards so tightly they were starting to bend and crumple in her hands. Harry leaned forward, trying desperately to redirect the conversation onto more productive ground. "I understand there's skepticism, and that's fair. People have every right to question what we're doing, and whether it's making a real difference. But the organizations I work with are making real, tangible differences in people's lives. We've helped hundreds of families with heating costs this winter alone, and we're working on expanding that program to reach thousands more. Hundreds, Lorraine scoffed, rolling her eyes dramatically for the cameras. How generous of you. How incredibly noble. Tell me, Harry, how much did your last vacation cost? I'm guessing it could have helped thousands of families, not just hundreds. Or what about that watch you're wearing right now? How many families could that feed for a year? How many people could it house? The audience murmured uncomfortably. Some people looked shocked by the directness of the attack, by the hostility radiating from the host. Others seemed to be leaning forward in their seats, drawn in by the confrontation unfolding before them, unable to look away. I don't think my personal life is really relevant to the work we're discussing today, Harry said, his jaw tightening visibly, a muscle jumping in his cheek. We're here to talk about how we can help people who are struggling. Oh, but it is relevant, Lorraine shot back, her voice rising with each word, getting louder and more aggressive. It's completely relevant when you come on television pretending to be some kind of champion for the poor, some kind of savior, while you're literally part of the 1% of the 1%. You've never struggled a day in your life, have you? Never worried about where your next meal would come from? Never chosen between heating and eating? Christine Lampard finally spoke up, her voice gentle but firm, trying to be a voice of reason. Lorraine, I think what Prince Harry is trying to share is actually quite important for our viewers to hear. Perhaps we could hear more about the specific initiatives and how they're structured to help people, not just in the short term, but long term as well. Lorraine turned to Christine with barely concealed irritation, her lips pressed into a thin, angry line. Christine, darling, I appreciate your input. I really do. But I think our viewers are smart enough to see through this charade without you playing cheerleader for royalty. We don't need you defending him. He's a grown man. Let him defend himself if he can. Christine's face flushed deep red, the color spreading down her neck. But she remained silent, looking down at her lap, clearly hurt and embarrassed. Harry's hands gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles turning white with the pressure. This isn't a charade, Lorraine. These are real programs helping real people with real problems. We have single mothers who can now afford to keep their heating on through the winter. We have elderly people who aren't choosing between food and warmth anymore. These aren't just numbers on a page or statistics in a report. And these are human beings with names and faces and families. Real people, Lorraine repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm, with contempt. You wouldn't know real people if they served you tea on a silver platter in your palace. When was the last time you actually struggled for anything? When was the last time you worried about paying a bill or keeping the lights on? When did you ever have to choose between buying food or paying rent? When did you ever go to bed hungry? That's not fair, Lorraine, Harry said, his voice strained but still controlled, still measured. Just because I was born into privilege doesn't mean I can't use that position to help others. I didn't choose my circumstances, but I can choose what I do with them. I can choose to use whatever influence I have for good. Lorraine leaned forward aggressively across her desk, her eyes narrowed into slits. No, what's not fair is you sitting there in your designer suit, probably custom made by some fancy tailor, flying here on who knows what kind of luxury transport, probably a private jet, eating in the finest restaurants, sleeping in the finest hotels, and then having the audacity, the sheer nerve, to tell struggling families that you understand their pain. You don't understand anything about their lives. Nothing. Ross King tried again, his voice more insistent this time, almost pleading. Lorraine, I really think we should focus on the charity work itself, rather than making this personal. This isn't productive for anyone. Not for us, not for the viewers, not for the people these charities are trying to help. Personal? Lorraine snapped at Ross, her head whipping around to face him, eyes blazing. This is journalism, Ross. This is asking the questions that people at home are thinking, but are too polite to say. This is holding power to account. Or would you rather we just lob him softball questions and let him use our platform for a PR stunt? Is that what you want? Because if so, Maybe you should go work for his publicity team instead of working here. The studio had gone completely silent now. You could hear people breathing. The camera operators looked at each other nervously, unsure whether they should keep filming or cut away. The producers in the control room were frantically discussing whether to cut to commercial, their voices rising in urgent, panicked debate. Harry stood up slowly, his movements deliberate and calm, controlled. I came here in good faith, Lorraine. I came here to talk about programs that are genuinely helping people, making real differences in their lives. But if you're more interested in attacking me personally than having a constructive conversation about real solutions to real problems that real people are facing, then I don't think there's any point in continuing this charade. Lorraine's eyes widened with false innocence, her hand fluttering to her chest in mock surprise, playing to the cameras. Oh, so now you're running away? How very brave of you. Can't handle a few tough questions from a woman who isn't intimidated by your title. Can't handle someone treating you like a normal person instead of royalty? Tough questions are fine, Lorraine, Harry said, his voice steady despite the clear anger burning in his eyes. I welcome tough questions. I expect them. But what you're doing isn't journalism. It's ambush television. It's cruel. It's unfair. And frankly, it's beneath you. You're better than this. Or at least I thought you were. Beneath me? Lorraine stood up as well, her voice getting louder with each syllable, echoing through the studio. Don't you dare come onto my show, onto my set, and tell me what's beneath me. You don't get to waltz in here with your royal entitlement and your superior attitude and dictate how I run my program. This is my show. Mine, not yours. I've earned this. Christine stood up quickly, her chair scraping harshly against the floor. Lorraine, please, let's all just take a breath and calm down for a moment. This is getting completely out of hand. We need to step back. Sit down, Christine, Lorraine barked without even looking at her, without taking her eyes off Harry. Nobody asked for your opinion right now. Stay out of this. Harry shook his head slowly, sadly, disappointment written across his face. You know what? I actually feel sorry for you, Lorraine. You had a real opportunity here today. A genuine opportunity. You had a chance to have a meaningful conversation about issues that genuinely matter to millions of people across this country. And instead, you chose to make it about point scoring and personal attacks and drama. That's a choice you made, not me. You did that. I don't need your pity, Lorraine hissed, her face contorting with rage, her carefully maintained composure cracking. And our viewers certainly don't need your condescending lectures about charity when you've never known a single day of real hardship in your entire pampered, privileged, sheltered life. Ross King stood up now too, placing a hand gently on Lorraine's shoulder, trying to calm her. Lorraine, come on. This has gone too far. We need to stop this before it gets any worse. Please. Lorraine shrugged off Ross's hand violently, jerking her shoulder away, as if his touch burned her. Don't touch me, Ross. And don't you dare tell me how to do my job. I've been doing this for 20 years. 20 years. I don't need you mansplaining my own career to me. I know what I'm doing. Harry started removing his microphone, his fingers working quickly and efficiently at the clip. I think we're done here. This was clearly a mistake. I should never have agreed to come. Oh, we're done when I say we're done, Lorraine said, her face flushed with anger, her carefully applied makeup starting to streak slightly with perspiration running down her temples. You don't get to just leave because you can't handle the heat. You don't get to run away when things get difficult. That's not how this works. This isn't heat, Lorraine, Harry said calmly, carefully placing the microphone on his chair with deliberate precision. This is you being unnecessarily hostile to someone who came here in good faith to discuss helping people. And honestly, it says a lot more about you than it does about me. It really does. Think about that. Lorraine's voice went shrill, almost piercing, breaking. How dare you? How dare you come onto my show and insult me like this? I'm trying to do my job. I'm trying to be a real journalist. I'm not insulting you, Harry replied, his voice maddeningly calm compared to Lorraine's rising hysteria. The contrast stark. I'm simply stating facts. Observable facts. You've been antagonistic from the moment I sat down in this chair. You've dismissed every single attempt I've made to discuss the actual work being done, the actual people being helped. And you've been incredibly rude, unprofessionally rude, to your own co-panelists when they tried to redirect the conversation to something productive. Those are just observable facts. Anyone watching can see it. Christine nodded slightly, looking relieved that someone had finally said what everyone in the studio was thinking, what everyone at home was probably thinking. Antagonistic, Lorraine practically shouted, her voice bouncing off the studio walls, reverberating. I'm holding you accountable. That's what real journalists do. We ask hard questions. We challenge people in power. We don't let them get away with PR nonsense. Real journalists ask challenging questions. Yes, Harry countered, his voice still remarkably level, controlled. They don't launch personal attacks and then hide behind the excuse of accountability. There's a difference between tough questioning and what you're doing here. A big difference. And you know it. The audience was completely transfixed now, frozen. Some people had their hands over their mouths in shock. Others were recording on their phones, knowing they were witnessing something extraordinary, something historic, something that would be replayed and discussed and analyzed for weeks, maybe months to come. Ross tried once more, desperation creeping into his voice. Why don't we all just sit back down and start over? We can reset this. We can have a civil, productive conversation about the charity work and the people it's helping. It's not too late. Lorraine spun on Ross, her finger jabbing toward him accusingly like a weapon. Oh, now you're taking his side? Now you're defending the royal who can't handle a simple interview? After everything I've done for you on this show? After I gave you opportunities? I'm not taking sides, Lorraine, Ross said firmly, his own patience clearly wearing thin, his voice taking on an edge. I'm trying to salvage what's left of this interview before it becomes a complete disaster for everyone involved, including you, especially you. Too late for that, Christine muttered under her breath. Barely audible, but the sensitive microphones picked it up perfectly, broadcasting her words to thousands of viewers watching at home. Lorraine heard it, and her eyes flashed with pure fury. Excuse me, Christine? Do you have something to say to me? Something you'd like to share with everyone? Christine straightened her shoulders, finding her courage, her voice. Actually, yes. I think Prince Harry is absolutely right. This stopped being an interview about 10 minutes ago and turned into something else entirely. Something really uncomfortable to watch. Something that doesn't belong on morning television. Then maybe you should leave too, Lorraine snapped, her voice venomous, poisonous. If you can't handle real television, if you can't handle what actual journalism looks like, then the door is right there. Feel free to use it. Nobody's forcing you to stay. Harry moved toward the exit, shaking his head in disbelief at what he was witnessing. I'm not going to stand here and watch you berate your colleagues, people who work with you every single day, because you're angry that I called out your behavior. This is wrong. This is so wrong. Lorraine rushed around the desk, her heels clicking sharply on the studio floor like gunshots in the silence. You're not dismissed. I didn't say you could leave. Get back here right now. You don't own me, Lorraine, Harry said quietly but firmly, his voice cutting through her shouting like a knife. This isn't a monarchy. I'm not your subject. You don't have power over me. I can leave whenever I choose, and I'm choosing to leave right now. This is over. Fine, leave, Lorraine shouted, her voice echoing through the studio, bouncing off every surface, filling every corner. Run back to your castle, and your servants, and your silver spoons, and tell everyone how mean Lorraine Kelly was to you. I'm sure you'll get plenty of sympathy from your rich friends in their mansions. Harry paused at the very edge of the set and turned back one final time, his expression sad. You know what the truly sad part is? You actually had the opportunity to do something meaningful today. Something important. You could have used your platform, your voice, your audience, to highlight important work that's changing lives, helping families. Instead, you chose confrontation and drama and cruelty. That's your choice to live with, Lorraine, not mine. You did this to yourself, nobody else. Get out, Lorraine screamed, her voice cracking with the strain, pointing toward the exit with a trembling finger. Get out of my studio right now. I don't want to see your face ever again. The security personnel started moving forward uncertainly, unsure whether they should intervene, looking to the producers for guidance that wasn't coming. Ross King stepped directly between Lorraine and Harry, his hands raised peacefully, trying to be a barrier. Lorraine, please, you really need to calm down. Take a breath. This is being broadcast live to thousands of people. Don't tell me to calm down. Lorraine was trembling with rage now, her whole body shaking visibly. He came here to use us, to use our show for his PR machine. Can't you see that? Are you blind? That's not true, Lorraine, Christine said quietly but clearly, her voice steady now. He came here to talk about charity work, real programs helping real people, and you turned it into a personal attack from the very first question. You did that? Not him. This is on you. Lorraine whirled on Christine, her eyes blazing with an almost manic intensity. You're fired! Both of you! Get off my set right now! You're done. Finished. Ross's eyes widened in disbelief. You can't fire us, Lorraine. You don't have that authority. You're not the executive producer. You're the host. Then consider yourselves suspended indefinitely, Lorraine shouted, spit flying from her mouth with the force of her words. I won't work with people who undermine me on my own show, on live television, in front of everyone. Harry was already walking away, shaking his head, his shoulders squared with dignity, despite everything. The studio doors opened, and he stepped through them without looking back, without hesitation, leaving the chaos behind him. Lorraine stood in the middle of the set, breathing heavily, gasping really, her carefully styled hair now disheveled and falling across her face, her makeup unable to hide the deep red flush of anger spreading across her skin like a rash. The cameras were still rolling, still broadcasting, capturing every single second of her complete meltdown for posterity. Turn the cameras off, she suddenly screamed at the camera operators, her voice hoarse and breaking. I said turn them off right now. Stop filming me. But the live broadcast kept going for another few agonizing seconds, just long enough to capture Lorraine Kelly, the beloved breakfast television host, standing alone in the middle of her set, looking small and furious and utterly defeated, a woman who had just destroyed everything in a fit of uncontrolled rage. Ross King quietly removed his microphone, his movements slow and deliberate and final. Christine Lampard did the same, her hands shaking slightly as she unclipped it. They walked off the set together, their footsteps echoing in the terrible silence, leaving Lorraine standing there completely by herself in the wreckage of her own making. The audience sat in stunned, uncomfortable silence. Nobody knew whether to clap or stay quiet or get up and leave. The awkwardness was overwhelming, suffocating, unbearable. You could hear people breathing, shifting in their seats, the sound of someone's phone buzzing, a cough somewhere in the back row. Finally, one of the producers rushed onto the set, her headset askew, her face pale with worry and stress. We're cutting to commercial. Lorraine, we need you in the control room immediately. Right now. We have a serious situation. But Lorraine just stood there, frozen in place, staring at the doors through which Prince Harry had exited just moments ago, as if she still couldn't quite believe what had just happened, couldn't process the magnitude of her actions, couldn't understand how it had all gone so wrong so fast. In the control room, monitors showed the social media response already exploding like wildfire across every platform imaginable. Within minutes, hashtags were trending worldwide. Clips were being shared thousands of times per second. The world was watching in real time and the verdict was swift and absolutely unanimous, completely unforgiving. Prince Harry had remained calm throughout the entire ordeal, dignified, reasonable, measured, patient, professional. He had tried multiple times to steer the conversation toward meaningful topics, toward the actual work being done, the actual people being helped. He had stood up for himself without being aggressive or defensive. He had even defended Lorraine's own co-panelists when she turned on them viciously and unfairly. He had been the picture of grace under pressure, a masterclass in composure and maturity. Lorraine Kelly, on the other hand, had shown herself to be hostile from the very first second, from the very first question, dismissive, unprofessional, aggressive, mean, petty, and ultimately completely unhinged. She had attacked a guest who came in good faith. She had berated her colleagues on live television for trying to help. She had screamed and lost all control in a way that no professional broadcaster ever should, in a way that destroyed credibility instantly and permanently. The makeup artist approached her carefully, cautiously, like someone approaching a wounded, dangerous animal that might lash out at any moment. "Lorraine, are you okay? Do you need anything? Can I get you some water or something?" Lorraine didn't respond at first. She just kept staring at those doors, perhaps beginning to realize something terrible and irreversible. That in 29 seconds of pure, unfiltered hostility at the very beginning of the interview, she had set in motion something she could never take back, could never undo, could never fix, no matter how hard she tried. That her determination to make Prince Harry look bad, to score points, to create drama, to be confrontational, had backfired so spectacularly that it was almost poetic in its completeness. That she had revealed something ugly and mean and petty about herself that the cameras had captured perfectly for everyone to see, to judge, to remember forever, to never forget. And as the commercial break ended and the show attempted to continue without its main guest, without two of its panelists, and with a host who looked like she'd just been through an absolute war, who could barely hold herself together, one thing became crystal clear to everyone watching, everyone in the studio, everyone at home, everyone who would see the clips later that day and in the days to come. This wasn't Prince Harry's disaster. It wasn't his failure. It wasn't his embarrassment. It wasn't his loss. It was Lorraine Kelly's. All of it. Every single bit. And everyone knew it. The whole world knew it. And they would remember this moment for a very long time to come. The moment when Lorraine Kelly lost control completely and destroyed her own reputation on live television. The cameras had seen everything. The audience had witnessed it all. And now the world would judge. A host who had forgotten that her job was to inform, to enlighten, to bring people together, not to tear them apart for ratings. A host who had chosen anger over understanding, confrontation over conversation, personal attacks over professional journalism. And in doing so, she had shown everyone exactly who she really was when the cameras were rolling and the pressure was on.